allows those who are Americans who pay taxes and are contributing to this nation. So I ask my colleagues to consider H.R. 592 and how we can make it better so that it can go forward and help the places of worship. I thank you, and I yield back my time.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I wish to yield 4 minutes to the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Smith.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
I thank my good friend for yielding, and I thank the gentlelady from Texas for her very strong and passionate remarks. And especially again want to thank Congresswoman Meng for her excellent statement and her support and co-sponsorship of this important bill. Let me just say a couple of points to my colleagues. First of all, I will be submitting for the record a very fine analysis by the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty, an outstanding law firm, public interest law firm that has done yeoman's work throughout the country on religious liberty. On this question, they have written, and it's a statement to us as members of Congress by its leaders, and it points out, first, not only does the Establishment Clause provide no support for FEMA's practice of discriminating against houses of worship, that practice itself runs afoul of the First Amendment by discriminating against religious institutions. Second, the bill you have proposed will not lead to Establishment Clause violations because no act of Congress can purport to repeal the First Amendment. Arguments to the contrary are constitutional scaremongering. Eric Rasbach and Daniel Blumberg, I should say, have authored, again, a very important contribution to this debate. Madam Speaker, and Ms. Meng mentioned this earlier, and it bears repeating, in letters of support for H.R. 592, Harvard professor Alan Dershowitz concludes, and I quote, "Religious institutions may receive government aid if it is in the context of a broadly available program with criteria that are neutral towards religion and pose no risk of religious favoritism." He states further, once FEMA has a policy in place to aid various nonprofit organizations with their building repairs, houses of worship should not be excluded from receiving this aid on the same terms. This is all the more appropriate given the neutral role that we have witnessed houses of worship play without regard to religion to those afflicted in the wake of Sandy and countless previous disasters. Federal disaster relief aid in the form of social insurance and means of helping battered communities get them back on their feet. Churches, synagogues, mosques, and other houses of worship are an essential part of the recovery process. Religious liberty scholar, Madam Speaker, Professor Douglas Laycock of the University of Virginia School of Law wrote a letter endorsing H.R. 592 and said, in part, quote, "Charitable contributions to places of worship are tax deductible without significant controversy, even though the tax benefits to the donor are like a matching grant from the government. These deductions have been uncontroversial because they are included without discrimination in a much broader category of all not-for-profit organizations devoted to charitable, educational, religious, or scientific purposes. The neutral category here is equally broad. To include places of worship in disaster relief is neutral. To exclude them would be affirmatively hostile. There is no constitutional obstacle to including them." So says again Professor Laycock of the University of Virginia School of Law, a preeminent expert on these matters. Madam Speaker, houses of worship are an integral, irreplaceable part of the contour and fabric of our communities. Like any other private nonprofit organization, their recovery is essential to the recovery of neighborhoods, towns, and states. They should not be excluded from federal programs that ensure community recovery, especially since they so selflessly provide assistance to all in need. This legislation, Madam Speaker, in conclusion, has been backed by a number of important organizations, including the Union of Orthodox Jewish Congregations of America, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, National Association. I ask for additional 30 seconds if we have it.
Yield an additional 30 seconds.
The gentleman is recognized.
Just to underscore to my colleagues the broad support that this has, The American Jewish Committee has also supported it, the Family Research Council, and as I said earlier, the Beckett Fund and so many others have written very extensive remarks in favor of it. So I do hope this will be a very strong support for this important legislation. It's a matter of inclusion to stop current-day, present-day exclusion. I yield back to my friend the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania has 1 minute remaining. 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I just want to confirm that the gentleman from West Virginia has yielded back the balance of his time.
The gentleman from West Virginia has yielded the balance of his time.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I know all too well and firsthand what happens when disaster strikes at home. My constituents were affected by Hurricane Irene and Tropical Storm Lee. So I would like to commend the gentleman from New Jersey for his hard work for the constituents back home. It's times like this that we need to come together in a bipartisan fashion to help Americans who need that help. And with that, Madam Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 592? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the Chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Madam Speaker,
for what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania rise?
I demand the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. All those in favor of taking this vote by the yeas and nays will rise and remain standing until counted. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this motion will be postponed. Ready? Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, proceedings will resume on motions to suspend the rules previously postponed. Votes will be taken in the following order: H.R. 592 by the yeas and nays, H.R. 267 by the yeas and nays. The first electronic vote will be conducted as a 15-minute vote. Remaining electronic votes will be conducted as 5-minute votes. The unfinished business is the vote on the motion of the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Barletta, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 592, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 592, a bill to amend the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act to clarify that houses of worship are eligible for certain disaster relief and emergency assistance on terms equal to other eligible private nonprofit facilities and for other purposes.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote.
So a fairly light schedule in the House today, with members holding the first and only series of votes here. 2 votes in this series, beginning with a vote on a bill that they debated today, allowing churches and other houses of worship to be eligible for federal disaster relief assistance. The bill also includes language that benefits victims of the recent Hurricane Sandy that hit northeastern states. That'll be followed by a bill that was debated yesterday dealing with the permitting process for hydroelectric facilities. So 2 votes in this series, beginning with a 15-minute vote. While this vote is underway, President Obama traveled to Asheville, North Carolina today to start a 3-day tour of states promoting some of his economic proposals that he spoke about in the State of the Union message last night. Here's what the president had to say.
Hello, North Carolina. It is good to be back. I love coming to Asheville. Love coming to Asheville. Michelle and I always talk about how, you know, if after this whole presidency thing, you know, we're looking for a little spot to, you know, come on down. Play a little golf, do a little hiking, fishing, you barbecue. There are 2 things that keep bringing me back here. Number 1 is I really like the people, and number 2 is 12 Bones, which I will be stopping on the way back to the airport. Now, I want to start off by thanking Stratton for the wonderful introduction, and what made it wonderful was not only did he do a great job, but it was really brief. And I also want to thank Frank and Jim and everybody at Linamar for hosting us and giving me this terrific tour of the plant. I want to point out 2 elected officials who are with us here today. First of all, your Mayor, Terry Bellamy. Where's Mayor Bellamy? There she is. Good to see you. Plus, you got a wonderful mayor. I like that in you, too. And also, Congressman Mel Watt is here. So give Congressman Watt a big round of applause. So, last night, I delivered the State of the Union address, and I talked about steps we can take right now to strengthen our recovery, but also to build up our middle class. And I said that while we're seeing some signs of solid progress, you know, car sales are up, housing's starting to recover, we're still a ways away from where we need to be. There's still too many Americans who are out there every day. They're pounding the pavement. They're looking for work. You guys probably know friends or family members who are still pretty strapped, having a difficult time. And while it's true that corporate profits have skyrocketed to an all-time high, it's also true that for more than a decade now, wages and incomes haven't gone up at all, just about. So we've got a lot of work to do. And our job, and this is a job for everybody, it's not a Democratic thing or a Republican thing. Our job as Americans is to restore that basic bargain that says, if you work hard, if you're willing to meet your responsibilities, you can get ahead. You can get ahead. Doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter where you come from. That's what we should be focused on. How do we make sure that people who are willing to work hard can make a decent living and look after their family? Because the true engine of America's economic growth has always been our middle class. Now, there are a lot of countries that have folks at the top who are doing real well, and a bunch of folks at the bottom, but part of what set America apart was ordinary folks, if they worked hard, they could do well. Our middle class, when it's growing, when it's thriving, when there are ladders of opportunity for people to do a little bit better each year and then make sure that their kids are doing even better than them, that's the American dream. That's what we got to fight for. That has to be the North Star that guides everything we do. And as I said last night, we should be asking ourselves 3 questions every single day. It doesn't matter whether you're in North Carolina or Texas or California or Oregon. Doesn't matter. Wherever we are, 3 things we should be asking. Number 1, how do we bring more jobs to America? Number 2, how do we equip people with the skills they need to do those jobs? And number 3, how do we make sure that once they have a job, it leads to a decent living? I believe we reward effort and determination with wages that allow working families to raise their kids and get ahead. And that's part of the reason why I said last night that it's time for an increase in the minimum wage. Because if you work full-time, you shouldn't be in poverty. I also believe we provide our people skills and training by investing in education, and that has to start early. It has to start early. So I talked about making sure the kids are getting early childhood education, making sure that our high schools are preparing our children for a high-tech economy, and making sure that colleges are affordable and accessible to every single American. And I believe we attract new jobs to America by investing in new sources of energy and new infrastructure and the next generation of high-wage, high-tech American manufacturing. I believe in manufacturing. I think it makes our country stronger. So that's what we can do together, and that's why I wanted to come down here to Asheville. Because there's a good story to tell here. I know that a few years ago, manufacturing comebacks, in North Carolina, a manufacturing comeback in Asheville may not have seemed real likely, because Volvo had just left town. This plant had gone dark. 228 jobs had vanished. And that was a big blow for this area, because part of what happens is when those manufacturing jobs go away, then suddenly the restaurant has fewer customers. And suppliers for the plant start withering. And it's hard for everybody. It has a ripple effect. But then local officials start reaching out to companies, offering new incentives to take over this plant. Some of the workers who got laid off, like Stratton, went back to school, and they learned new skills. And then a year later, Linamar showed up. They were looking for a place to build some big parts, and these parts are big, I got to say. Hubs and wheels and anchors for 400-ton mining trucks. And while they could have gone any place in the world, they saw this incredible potential right here in Asheville. They saw the most promise in this workforce. So they chose to invest in Asheville, in North Carolina, in the United States of America. So, to date, Linamar has hired 160 workers. It'll be 200 by the end of the year, and it's just going to keep on going after that. So, folks at Linamar said they came to Asheville to grow their business. They came here to stay and put down some roots. And the good news is what's happening here is happening all around the country. Because just as it's becoming more and more expensive to do business in places like China, America's getting more competitive and more productive. Now, after shedding jobs for more than 10 years, our manufacturers have now added about 500,000 jobs over the past 3 years. And I mentioned this last night. Caterpillar, which I know you guys supply, they're bringing jobs back from Japan. Ford is bringing jobs back from Mexico. After placing plants in other countries like China, Intel is opening its most advanced plant here in the United States. Apple is starting to make Macs in America again. So we're seeing this trend of what we call insourcing, not just outsourcing. And the reason is because America's got outstanding workers. We're starting to produce more homegrown energy, which is driving down our energy costs. And obviously, we've still got the biggest market in the world. And if we, try to improve our infrastructure a little bit more, then we're going to be even that much more competitive. Now, I want to be honest with you. We're not going to bring back every job that's been lost to outsourcing and automation over the last decade. And I was talking to some of the guys who were showing me their facilities who had been in manufacturing for 20 years. And, they explained how things had changed. It used to be you had to, you wanted to do the kind of stuff you guys are doing here, everything was done manually. Right now you got a computer and you're punching in stuff. And so it's changed. And that means that you can just produce a lot more with fewer people. But there are things we can do right now to accelerate the resurgence of American manufacturing. Number one, we can create more centers for high-tech manufacturing in America. Last year, my administration created our first Manufacturing Innovation Institute. We put it in Youngstown, Ohio, which had been really hard hit when manufacturing started going overseas. And so you had a once shuttered warehouse. It's now a state-of-the-art lab where new workers are mastering what's called 3D printing, which has the potential to revolutionize the way we make everything. That's the future. And there's no reason that those same kinds of projects can't take root in other cities and towns. So last night I announced the launch of 3 more institutes, and I'm calling on Congress to help us set up 15 institutes, global centers of high-tech jobs and advanced manufacturing around the country. Second thing we need to do is make our tax code more competitive. Right now, companies get all kinds of tax breaks for moving jobs and profits overseas, but companies that stay here get hit with one of the highest tax rates in the world. That doesn't make any sense. So what I'm proposing is that we reform our tax code, stop rewarding businesses that ship jobs overseas, reward companies that are creating jobs right here in the United States of America. That makes sense. Number 3, if you're a manufacturing town, especially one that's taken a hit, that's seen a company close up shop or a plant shut down, I want to partner with local leaders to help you attract new investment. Because once that investment starts coming in, things can start turning around. And that means infrastructure gets modernized and research facilities get built. And suddenly a community that was knocked down is getting back up. And they're attracting new manufacturers who want to come and expand and hire. So I want us to focus on, if a place like when Asheville lost the Volvo plant, we got to come in here real quick and help them figure out, all right, what is it that we need to attract a new employer? Number 4, we've got to help our workers get the training to compete for the industries of tomorrow. At least a couple of the guys that I had a chance to meet as we were taking the tour told me they were out of work for a year, in one case 2 years, in part because we kept unemployment insurance in place so folks could get back on their feet. They were able to go back to school and now are gainfully employed. No job in America should go unfilled because somebody doesn't have the right skills to get that job. Nobody. So If there's a job open, we should train those folks right away so that they can do the job. And that's why I'm proposing a national goal of training 2 million Americans with skills that will lead directly to a job. And we know this works. You know, after Linamar came to town, they started working with AB Tech, one of the community colleges here in Asheville. And AB Tech and Linamar worked together to do something that is really smart. Rather than have kids just not, or in some cases not kids, you know, older workers, show up and they're taking a bunch of classes, but they don't know how this is directly going to lead to a job. What you do is you customize the class to train people so they can come and work at the plant, and they're getting experience that's directly applicable to what's being done here at the job. That's good for the community. It's good for Linamar because they're getting workers who they know can do the job. It's good for the folks who are going to the community college because they know if they work hard and they do well in the class, there's a job waiting for them. It's good for the economy as a whole. So those are 4 common sense steps that we can take right now to strengthen manufacturing in America. Now, there's no magic bullet here. It's just some common sense stuff. People still have to work hard. Companies like Linamar still have to make good products, but the point is that if we can just do a few things, then over time what happens is we start rebuilding our manufacturing base in a way that strengthens our economy as a whole. Now, I'm doing what I can just through administrative action, but I need Congress to help. I need Congress to do their part. I need Congress to do their part. I need Congress to take up these initiatives because we've come too far and we've worked too hard to turn back now. And you think about all that this city and all of you have been through over the last few years. Think about folks like Jeff Brower. Now, Jeff was in the trucking industry for over a decade. 2 years ago, he got laid off. Lost his job as a diesel mechanic. That's a tough thing to go through, even though Jeff's a pretty tough guy. But he bounced back. He decided it was time for him to change careers. He decided it was time to get some new skills. He went to AB Tech, took a class in automated machining. A few months ago, Jeff got his diploma. He graduated on a Wednesday, interviewed at this plant on Thursday. By Friday, he was working as a machine operator. Where's Jeff? There he is. Where's Jeff? There he is, right here. Now, obviously, Jeff's pretty good at interviews because, you know, he just got hired like that. I hope he can give me some advice. But here's the thing. The reason Jeff did all that, obviously, a lot of it was to support himself and his family, but it wasn't just to punch a clock at a new plant or pick up a paycheck from a new company. It was to make sure he could have a better future for his family and for his community and his country. You know, Jeff said, getting my foot in the door has opened my eyes to bigger horizons, and I want to keep on going. I want to keep on going. So, that's our story. That's the American story. We don't give up. We get up. We innovate. We adapt. We learn new skills. We keep going. And I just want everybody here to know at this plant, but everybody in Asheville, everybody in North Carolina, and everybody all across the country, I want you to know, as long as you're out here fighting every day to better your lives and to better the lives of your children, then I'll be back in Washington fighting for you. I will be back there fighting for you. Because there's nothing we can't do and no possibilities we can't reach when we're working together. We just have to work together. We've got to stop with some of the politics that we see in Washington sometimes that's focused on who's up and who's down. And let's just focus on the same kind of common sense and cooperation that we're seeing at this plant and we see all across the country. All right? So thank you, everybody. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you.
Asheville, North Carolina is the first of 3 stops the president is scheduled to make in support of his economic policies. Tomorrow he'll be in Atlanta, and Friday the president travels to Chicago. The House right now in the last few moments of their first roll call vote of the day. Members voting on a bill making community centers and houses of worship to also be eligible for disaster aid. This measure would also include victims of Hurricane Sandy. Members will next, we expect them to move on to the second and final vote, bill dealing with a something that they debated yesterday, the permitting process for hydroelectric facilities. That vote coming up next.
On this vote, the yeas are 354, the nays are 72. Two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The House will be in order. The House will be in order. Would members please clear the well? For what purpose does the gentlewoman, the minority leader from California, seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
The gentlewoman is recognized, but the House is not in order. Please take your conversations off the floor. The House will be in order. The gentlewoman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise with great pride to pay tribute to a very distinguished American, a longtime member of the congressional staff, in fact, a person who has served the Congress for 38 years as a member of the staff, 30 of it for George Miller, 8 as my assistant in the leadership office, John Lawrence. I'm happy to pay tribute to him. I'm sad because John will be, I don't know if the word is retiring, but he will be leaving service in the Capitol. He has always been a great proponent of science, technology, and innovation, and as he concludes his service to the House, it is only fitting to cite the words of Alfred Lord Tennyson as inscribed on the walls of the House Science and Technology Committee. Quote, "For I dipped into the future, far as human eyes could see, saw the vision of the world and all the wonder that would be." Over nearly 4 decades serving the Congress, John has always kept his sights and his vision firmly on the future. He believed and he knew that the future is about investing in our children, supporting working families, strengthening the middle class. He knew that the future is about protecting our environment and preserving our planet for generations to come. John knew that the future of the House is strengthened by fellow staff members working in a bipartisan way. John has always respected the role.
The gentlewoman would suspend.
John has always.
The House is not in order. Now, the gentlewoman continues.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. John has always respected the role played by our staffs on the Education Committee and on the Natural Resources Committee in the offices of the Democratic leader and as my role as Speaker of the House and as our distinguished Speaker's role as Speaker today. Indeed, the staff look to him for leadership just as members look to him for guidance. In that spirit, this afternoon, my colleagues, the Speaker, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for making this possible. The Speaker and I will honor John Lawrence with the John W. McCormick Award of Excellence, on which, as declared by former then Majority Leader Carl Albert in 1970, quote, "The name of the House employee who performs the most valuable service for the House will be inscribed." What a fitting tribute to John Lawrence's 38 years of valuable service, extraordinary leadership, and dedication to the future. We have had the privilege of honoring in a bipartisan way other members of the staff in the Congress, and John's name will bring luster to that list. Colleagues, please join me in thanking a dear friend, my former Chief of Staff, John Lawrence. And now I yield to the Speaker of the House, Mr. Boehner.
Well, this is a day of mixed emotions for the House. John Lawrence, his retirement means that we're losing a faithful public servant, one of our own. But we can all agree that John deserves some time off after 38 years of working here in the House. And for those of you that may not know John, he is currently the longest-serving staffer in the House. John and I have known each other for a long time, since going back to my days as chairman of the Education and Workforce Committee. And I can safely say that it really didn't matter whether we were on the same side of the page or whether we had opposing views. He always handled it in the same way, with class and integrity. A real stand-up guy. And that didn't make John just didn't make an asset to George Miller, but also was a great asset to Leader Pelosi. And but it made him a great asset, I think, for the House as a whole and to the American people. So I know all of my colleagues and I want to say to John, thank you for all of your service to this House. We're sorry to see you go, but we want to wish you and your family the best in the future. Congratulations.
With the Speaker's permission, I acknowledge Elijah Lawrence, who's the teenage son of John Lawrence, and Deborah Lawrence, who's with us in the chamber. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, Madam Speaker, I yield back time. Thank you.
The gentlewoman yields back. Without objection, 5-minute voting will continue. The unfinished business is the vote on the motion of the gentleman from Kentucky Mr. Whitfield, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 267, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar number 4, H.R. 267, a bill to improve hydropower and for other purposes.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
House Minority Leader Pelosi paying tribute to her Chief of Staff, John Lawrence, who is retiring after 38 years of service in the House. He was also the longest-serving staffer in the House. He'll be replaced by a top aide to Nancy Pelosi, Nadeem El-Shami, who's currently the Communications Director and Senior Advisor. The final vote in the House deals with a measure debated yesterday on the permitting process for hydroelectric facilities, brought by Congressman Whitfield. This is a 5-minute vote. The Senate, that is also in session today. Yesterday, on a party line vote, the Senate Armed Services Committee approved former Nebraska Senator Chuck Hagel to be the next Defense Secretary. That nomination now goes to the full Senate for a vote, and the Senate's been debating the nomination today. A vote on approval is expected sometime tomorrow. The Senate may also debate a proposal to avoid the $85 billion in spending cuts that are set to take effect next month. You can see the Senate live on C-SPAN 2. It has been a busy day on Capitol Hill. The number of hearings we've been watching, including the confirmation hearing for President Obama's nominee to head the Treasury, Jack Lew. The committee began this morning at about 10. Live coverage on our companion network, C-SPAN. That's where we had it, and you can watch it in the C-SPAN video library. We have also covered hearings on the financial situations facing the FHA, the House Budget Committee hearing on the budget and the nation's economic outlook. Members heard from CBO Director Doug Elmendorf. The House Energy Committee looked into state law as it relates to satellite video. We also covered a Commerce Committee hearing this morning on cybersecurity policy. President Obama signed an executive order yesterday aiming to strengthen the country's cybersecurity infrastructure. Again, all these hearings are available to watch anytime online in the C-SPAN video library. And this very quickly, the Associated Press is reporting that the Pentagon is creating a new medal that can be awarded to troops who have a direct impact on combat operations but have never set foot in a combat zone. Officials telling the AP that the new Distinguished Warfare Medal will be awarded to individuals for extraordinary achievement related to a military operation. It's a recognition of evolving warfare where troops fight wars from computers and video screens.
0. Two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Would members please clear the well of the House? Would the House please come to order? Would members please clear the well of the House? Would the House please come to order? Where is it? Oh, for what purpose does the gentleman from California rise?
Madam Speaker, by direction of the Democratic Caucus, I offer a privileged resolution and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Resolution 64, resolved that the following named members be and are hereby elected to the following standing committees of the House of Representatives. 1. Committee on Agriculture, Mr. Garamendi. 2. Committee on the Budget, Mr. Blumenauer, to rank immediately after Mr. Cardenas. 3. Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, Mr. Welch, to rank immediately after Mr. Danny K. Davis of Illinois.
Without objection, the resolution is agreed to and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
The chair will entertain one-minute speeches. The House be in order. They're pointing at somebody. They're pointing at some guy over there. The chair will now entertain requests for one-minute speeches. Are there any further one-minute requests? Okay. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 3rd, 2013, the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Spire, is recognized for 60 minutes as a designee of the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This afternoon, we're going to spend the hour talking about gun violence prevention, and in particular, how the National Rifle Association has systematically unwound laws that are already been on the books. You know, last night, the President referenced the fact that since the horrific deaths at Sandy Hook, there have been 1,000 more people that have died due to gun violence. It is not good enough to wear a green ribbon in support of the Sandy Hook families and think you have done enough. Times have changed, and the polling that's been done is overwhelming in support for sensible gun violence prevention laws. And let's be clear at the outset. The Heller decision by the U.S. Supreme Court has made it very clear. Mr. Speaker, can we have some quiet on the floor, please?
Order.
The Heller decision made it very clear. Every American has a right to own a gun for recreational purposes or to have a gun in their home for purposes of safety, and that is not going to change. We embrace that decision. We support it.
but we also support safe laws around the use of guns. So let us begin by looking at this. A Quinnipiac survey done very recently, 92% support background checks for all gun purchases, including 91% of gun-owning households. 89% support closing the gun show loophole by requiring background checks for all gun purchases. 69% support banning the sale of semi-automatic military-style assault weapons. 68% support banning the sale of large-capacity ammunition magazines, and 81% favor prohibiting high-risk individuals from having guns, including those convicted of serious crime as juvenile or convicted of violating domestic violence restraining orders. So Frank Luntz, the Republican pollster, polled NRA members and non-NRA members who were gun owners. And what did they find out there? There they found out that 85% of gun owners and 87% of NRA members believe Second Amendment rights and gun safety laws can coexist. That's what we're talking about. 87% of gun owners and 74% of NRA members support requiring background checks of anyone buying a gun. We're talking about that right now. But in a couple of minutes, I'm going to show you how that has changed among the leadership in the NRA. 53% of gun owners and 57% of the NRA members mistakenly believe that everyone has to pass a background check. 80% of gun owners, 79% of NRA members support requiring background checks of gun retailers.
In order.
Mr. Speaker, can you ask members to take their conversations off the floor?
Members, please take your conversations out of the chamber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 80% of gun owners and 71% of NRA members support barring people on the terror watch list from buying guns. It's a surprise to most people that they can, in fact, buy guns. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the CEO of the National Rifle Association. What did he say in 1999? In 1999, after the Columbine shootings, when so many children lost their lives at Columbine High School, he said, "We think it's reasonable to provide mandatory instant criminal background checks for every sale at every gun show, no loopholes anywhere, for anyone." That's what he said. What did he say after 20 children and 6 adults lost their lives in Newtown at Sandy Hook? In 2013, he says, at a Senate hearing, when Senator Leahy says, "You do not support background checks in all instances at gun shows." We do not, Mr. LaPierre says, because the fact is the law right now is a failure the way it's working. None of it makes any sense in the real world. Well, we are living in the real world, and the real world would suggest to everyone that a common sense law is to have a universal background check for everyone. Let's look at the next time we saw a flip-flop by Mr. Wayne LaPierre. Again, the point being here that the NRA leadership does not reflect the NRA membership. In 1999, after Columbine, he says, "We believe in absolutely gun-free, zero-tolerance, totally safe schools. That means no guns in America's schools, period." On Meet the Press just a few weeks ago, Mr. LaPierre said, "If it's crazy to call for armed officers in our schools to protect our children, then call me crazy. I think the American people think it's crazy not to do it. It's the one thing that would keep people safe." The point here, colleagues, is that the public, NRA members, gun-owning families in this country believe in common sense reforms, and we owe it to them. We owe it to them to vote on these common sense bills that will not restrict anyone's ability to own a gun for self-protection or to own a gun for recreation, but will take these assault weapons that are military weapons that are invented for one reason and one reason only, and that is to tear the hell out of anything they come in contact. As one law enforcement officer said very recently, the energy in an assault weapon bullet will tear open a brick wall. You don't need that to go hunting. You don't need that to protect yourself in your home. I now yield to the gentlelady from New York, Carolyn Maloney.
To me or to Carolyn?
Well, you're standing, so
Well, I'd like to yield to my inspiration.